Hi Tiger Teams. Okay, now that we have our backgrounds drying, here's mine. It's ready to be drawn on. It's time to start our illustrations that represent our inner self. So if you remember, there will be a photograph of you facing the outside of the jar so you can see it clearly, but this drawing will be on the back wall of the jar. So you'll have to look through water and glass to see it. So it will be a little bit distorted, but that represents your inner self and how people can't really see day to day with the human eye what you are actually like and what kind of things represent you as a person. So it might be kind of hard to actually pick something that represents your inner self. For me, for example, I'm an artist. I love nature. I have a piece of land that's been in my family for 30 years, and if you knew me well, if you knew my inner self, you'd know that I'm there all the time, and this place pretty much represents me as a person. I grew up there, so that's probably what I'm going to include in my drawing. Just remember that what we're representing is what is unseen to regular people day to day, and that's distorted. So I'm going to start off with my drawing of my land. Okay, and something else to remember, we're going to be looking at this image, the image you decide to draw, through glass and through water. So things like colored pencils are great, but we're going to need something, some kind of materials that are a lot bolder, like markers, oil pastels, something that will be bright, that you can actually see through the water. So I'm going to do mine in marker. So when I think of my property, I know that, well, there's one main part I love to look at, and that's from the road. There's the valley, the swimming hole that I spend a lot of time at. And up the valley, you can hike up. And there's also two creeks intersecting. So I think that's probably what I'm going to draw. So let's start off just, and you know, this doesn't have to be perfect because, you know, your inner self and what people see of your inner self is abstracted. Abstracted meaning it's not something that's necessarily realistic. It's just symbolic of something. It doesn't have to be representative, really. So this drawing is not by any means realistic. It's going to be pretty abstracted. So this is going to be the valley. I'm just going to keep kind of filling it in a little bit. For this drawing, you think the jar, it curves, so it's going to be on a curve. So it's actually kind of cool to have a longer image. Another thing to think about, the photo that we're going to end up cropping is going to be the same size as your image, so it can be laminated together. But it's kind of cool to have a longer image, not only because that's a cool way to crop your photo on the outside, but also because then you have to turn the jar to actually see the whole image, which can actually be represented. You know, you have to investigate this image on the inside to actually find something out about someone else's or your own inner life.
Okay, so here is valley. There's some grass. You can go to another shade of green just because it's fun. Play different shades of colors makes your drawing more interesting. So green, and then you think about, here this is what I have so far. And then I think about, on valley, it's empty because it's actually top wires, so I'm not going to include. Because it's kind of been there forever in my property. But there's trees up on the edge of the valley, so I'm going to include those.
So there's my trees. You can see it is very abstracted. It's not super realistic, and that's okay because it's somewhat unclear which represents yourself. People can't just look at you and know exactly who you are. It remains a mystery, something that needs to be investigated. Okay, so here's a blue because there's actually two creeks at my property where we swim.
And they run side by side and intersect. But this part, by the valley, they don't intersect, so I'm just going to put them side by side.
Here we go. And you see how bold and bright this drawing is so that it will be visible through the water. There's the creeks. Might add a little bit of green up here because I see it's not very bright. That's the tops of the trees. Okay, now I think I'm going to put a sun in the valley.
Because sometimes the sun sets there and it is completely gorgeous. So here's the sun. Pretty.
And once again, you want to choose something that you're passionate about, something that you hold dear to your heart. And that doesn't have to be a place, it doesn't have to be a thing. I mean, it can be either of those. It can be a person, a hobby, like an idea, something that you're passionate about and that people, specifically, that people won't be able to tell that you're passionate about this thing just by looking at you. Something you hold near and dear to your heart. So here's my sun. I'm just kind of putting some oranges in there and stuff. I think I'm going to add a couple clouds just to make it more visually interesting.
Here we go. And you'll notice, like, the wedding, I have a lot of purples and sky and stuff. It's not really representative of anything. It's just, we're playing, kind of, it's fun.
Obviously, most of the time the sky is not purple, but look how cool that looks. I mean, I think it looks cool. There's the photo you brought today. Hopefully it's big enough. We're going to have you pick a jar. There should be a couple different sizes, and we're going to give you a corresponding cropping mechanism to crop out an image of this photo, just like the image we looked at earlier in Flotsam. So, say I picked a smaller jar, we'll give you a cropper about this big. That's how big your drawing will need to be. So we can actually crop out some of your drawing as well. It'll be easier whenever you come in to look at the jars and have in mind what size you want, so that if you pick a small jar, you don't want to have to like cut all of your image out, you know? So keep that in mind when you come in. Look at the jars, decide how big you want your drawing to be corresponding with what size you think you're going to pick your jar. Then we'll crop the image, the picture to that size, same size as your image, which will be the height of the jar. Okay, so I'm actually going to have to cut off a little bit of the top here. And then we'll laminate them together and stick them in. So, here I have image. It's laminated. Obviously, I did this one ahead of time so that I could have it ready. And then, this is my photo that I cropped. This picture represents your outer self, what people see of you. It's kind of goofy, but that's okay. It can be goofy. And it's weird cropped. Obviously, you can't see my mouth or my hair. And then the other side is something that you're passionate about. Really letting that person into your mind, in letting that person investigate what you're really passionate about. So I'm going to just show you how it's going to end up here. We're going to put it in. This jar has sand and water. And at first, the sand might fog the water up. It will settle. So we'll put it right in there. Let me find my cap. Here we are. And all set. Now, you can see my image is distorted. We'll give you guys jars that most likely won't have lettering, and you have to turn it to see, and you have to investigate to guess what the image actually is. It's a little easier to see than on this video, I think. And then on the outside, you have your exterior self. So this is my eye bottle. This is me, my exterior and my interior. And also, one more thing, you can see why it needs to be bright and bold, because it's kind of hard to see through it. It is very distorted. It's a little bit harder to see on this video, but you get the idea. So, Tiger team, have fun!